WNZK, Dearborn Heights, Detroit. Your ethnic superstation at 690 days, 680 nights.
أهلا بكل الذين ينضموا للاستماع إلى راديو بلدي أول راديو عربي أمريكي ويعنى بقضايا العرب في المهجر. برامجنا في راديو بلدي كل يوم جمعة من 8 وحتى 9 صباحا مع ليلى الحسيني في بث حي ومباشر عبر WNZK راديو 690 AM. صباح الخير بلدي، صباح الخير لكل مستمعينا.
Welcome to Radio Baladi, the first Arab, Middle Eastern, and American simulcast radio show. Radio Baladi is broadcast every Friday morning on WNZK 690 AM from 8 until 9 Eastern Time on Good Morning Michigan with Layla Al-Husseini. Our call-in number 248-557-3300. And now, stay tuned for the best radio talk show on Arab and American issues with your host, Layla Al-Husseini.
This is Dr. Sahar Khamis. Join me on the third Friday of each month at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll be discussing some of the most important current political, economic, and social issues in my program, The Bridge. On Radio Baladi, on America's Voice of the Arabs, WNZK 690 AM, and wdmv 700 AM.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the show. This is your host, Dr. Sahar Khamis. Ramadan Mubarak, Ramadan Kareem to all our listeners who are celebrating and honoring the holy month of Ramadan. Today we are discussing a very important and timely topic, standing up together after Orlando, voices from the interfaith community in Ramadan. And with me this morning discussing this important topic are three guests who are very involved in interfaith dialogue and interfaith solidarity for many years. Reverend Mansfield Kasey Kaseman, Ms. Nadia Hassan, and Mr. Walter Ruby. They all have very impressive and long bios, so in the interest of time, I will just highlight their most important achievements in this field. Nadia Hassan is an entrepreneur, social justice activist, public speaker, youth trainer, and she has always been active in interfaith dialogue. Nadia is the founder of Young Leaders Institute, a youth leadership platform and network connected that empowers youth towards social entrepreneurship, social innovation, and academic excellence. Previously, Nadia served as the government and interfaith relations coordinator for the Islamic Society of North America, ISNA. Nadia has an MBA from Bentley University, where she did her thesis on Islamic finance. Walter Ruby has served as Muslim-Jewish Program Director for the Foundation of Ethnic Understanding since 2008. A strong proponent of Muslim-Jewish understanding, he has served as chief organizer of the Foundation of Ethnic Understanding sponsored International Muslim-Jewish Season of Twinning every November from 2008 until 2014. In 2014-2015, Walter Ruby facilitated the creation of Muslim-Jewish Solidarity Committees in New York, New Jersey, Washington, Toronto, Montreal, Detroit, and Los Angeles, and he is currently director and founder of the Greater Washington Muslim-Jewish Forum. Reverend Mansfield Kasey Kaseman has served 40 years in ecumenical and interfaith ministries that has included founding and administering non-profit organizations, networking with all sectors of community life, and serving on regional and national boards. In 1979, he moved to Maryland, where he revitalized Rockville United Church and incorporated community ministries of Rockville, administering shelters, group homes, elderly home care, emergency assistance, Latino outreach and language program, community-based clinic, and political advocacy. Since allegedly retiring, Kasey has served as Senior Vice President of CTIS, a healthcare informatics company, Vice President of Van Epern and Company, and Interfaith Community Liaison for the County Executive in Montgomery County, Maryland. Welcome to the show, everybody.
Thank you for having us.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for being with me this morning. And I would like really to start, before talking about any specific incident or event, to just give each one of you, since you have such impressive background and really impressive journeys in the field of interfaith solidarity and dialogue, just give you an opportunity to briefly tell me what really triggered your interest in the first place in this type of interfaith work. I'll start with you, Walter Ruby.
Well, thank you so much, Sahar, and it's been wonderful working with you on many of these important questions that you outlined. So, as you mentioned, the Foundation for Ethnic Understanding has been working to strengthen Muslim-Jewish ties both across the U.S. and around the world since 2008, and we've been doing many things in that area, really trying to build relationships both on the leadership and grassroots level between Muslims and Jews, and to strengthen communication and cooperation between the two communities, especially working together against Islamophobia and anti-Semitism, working on both of those issues. This year, we have a few initiatives going that I'll just mention very briefly. One of them is that the foundation, which is headed, I should say, by Rabbi Mark Schneier and Russell Simmons, the famous hip-hop impresario, has launched a year-long campaign called Muslims Are Speaking Out. This is a social media campaign, and it's trying to get across the message to the larger American public that, in fact, Muslims are speaking out. We know that everyone who's listening today, this is not a news flash, but given the kind of demagoguery that's happening, right now in the presidential campaign and beyond, and this constant refrain, oh, Muslims never say anything after, a terrible event like Orlando, we're really focusing on getting that word out, and we're asking the enthusiastic involvement of ISNA, CARE, and others to help us on this, to get out the message through social media. And we have, you mentioned the season of twinning. We will be holding events this year on October 29th and November 6th in cities across America, where we will be bringing Muslims and Jews out together in public events to say we stand together, we will not be separated, we will, if either community is attacked, we will all speak out together. As you know, Sahar, we've done events like Spread Hummus Not Hate, where we've done around the city of Washington. We've done it 2 years in a row. We'll do it again this year. You've been a great part of that as part of our Greater Washington Muslim-Jewish Forum, also going around to give that message. And the last thing I'll just mention right now is that we just did a wonderful event at a synagogue in Northern Virginia, which was an opportunity for a Syrian refugee welcome dinner, and we brought together Muslims and Jews to welcome the Syrian refugees and to tell them that we're with them, that we do not accept the kind of demagoguery that's going on.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Walter. I'll also ask Nadia the same question. Nadia, what really triggered your interest in doing this kind of interfaith work in the first place? Briefly, so we can move on to Reverend Mansfield and then move on to our next question, please.
Thank you, Dr. Sahar, for having us on, and I'm very excited to be on this call with my dear friends Walter and Reverend Kasey. So for me, interfaith work, I really didn't have a choice. I was born into an interfaith family, and interestingly, I was born in Michigan, and my father, his brothers were married to Christian women, one who was Italian, and my other aunt was Polish. And so within my family, you will find, in addition to Lebanese, you will find Polish. So I have Polish cousins, I have Christian cousins, I have Jewish cousins, I have an Italian aunt and Italian cousins, I've got family from Brazil, I've got family in Australia. And so my great-grandmother was Argentinian, so I grew up in a family that was very interfaith. And so, when, my socialization at a very young age was with not only people of different ethnicities, but also of different faiths. And so, in addition to that, we recently said goodbye to a giant, Muhammad Ali, who was also, the great boxer, was very close to our family as well. And so if you look at our family photo albums, you will see Muhammad Ali is in many of my baby albums, many of my albums. as I got older. So just having that interaction, the close ties and the relationship with his family really gave me a rich experience growing up and helped shape my view of the world and what it means to be a person who had to relate and connect with people of all different types. And it's interesting. I just wanted to make this one point about interfaith. It's interesting that we have to have in this day and age, we live in a world where we have to really work at interfaith and participate in these interfaith movements in order to bridge better understandings and have. But really, interfaith to me is about getting to know your neighbors. It's about getting to know humanity, about people. It's a good thing that we are partaking in these movements, but it's really troublesome that we have to work at it and be involved in this, because this should be something that's second nature, that comes natural. This is something we should do as human beings.
Absolutely. And Reverend Kaseman, I would also like to ask you the very same question. What triggered your interest in the area of interfaith work, please?
Well, it's been an essential part of my own faith journey. I began my theological studies back in the 60s and was able then to get into the sacred texts of Eastern and Western faith traditions. And from then on, it's been very clear that the God I worship goes by many names and yet is beyond all of them. And in the day in which we're living now, just jumping right ahead, I draw more from being together with people of various faith traditions than I do with being together with just, my own. And the comfort and reassurance that we receive, especially now, in response to Orlando, is something you couldn't find any other way. So I just feel very privileged. I find again healing and hope coming out of these interfaith forums and vigils more than any place else.
Absolutely. And the famous, of course, a Sufi mystic, Rumi, when he said that I went to the synagogue, I did not find God. I went to the church, I did not find God. I went to the mosque, I did not find God. I looked inside my own heart and I found God. So as you very well said, God goes by so many different names, and when we come together in solidarity, that's where we really find the God that we worship all together in our unity and in our solidarity collectively inside our own heart. Walter Ruby, the whole point about the Greater Washington Muslim Jewish Forum is really to link and connect Muslims and Jews within the Greater Washington area in a number of different activities. You mentioned some of these activities, but if you can just give us an overall view briefly before we go out for a commercial break about the greater objectives and goals of the Greater Washington Muslim Jewish Forum, anything that in specific that you would like to highlight in this particular setting or context.
Thank you, Sahar. Well, the point of the Greater Washington Muslim Jewish Forum is to have a body in the Greater Washington area that works, that focuses full-time, and this is a body of grassroots folks and leaders that focuses full-time on Muslim-Jewish relations in this metro area. I should say also parenthetically that we have these bodies also in a number of other cities, including Detroit, where we have the Greater Detroit Muslim Jewish Forum headed by Siham Jaffer, who many of you know, I'm sure, and Rabbi Dorit Dut. But in Washington and Detroit, in all of these cities, we really we bring people together, Muslims and Jews, on a periodic basis and say, what can we do to improve relations between our peoples? And sometimes it's standing up together against Islamophobia and anti-Semitism. We hold cultural events, festive events, and many other things. As I mentioned, the Syrian refugees. We'll be helping to together with the Islamic Society of Central Florida. In next month, they'll be, ironically enough, coming from Orlando. They're going to be holding a rally for America on the National Mall here in Washington on July 23rd. We will be one of the organizers of that. And so again, just to really have a grassroots body in Washington and other metro areas that's focusing on the need to bring Muslims and Jews together. Last point on that is we believe very deeply that Muslims and Jews is in the interest of both communities to build ties, to come together, to work together. We may disagree sometimes on aspects of the Israel-Palestine conflict, but nevertheless, it's incredibly important for Muslims and Jews to stand together and to fight together against Islamophobia and anti-Semitism.
Absolutely, there is no question about it. And we will come back to these very important points right after this commercial break. Stay tuned, please.
Life for Relief and Development is a nonprofit charity that has been providing humanitarian aid and development to people and communities regardless of race, color, religion, or cultural background for over 22 years. When disaster occurs here or around the world, Life rushes to provide food, medical aid, and shelter to those in need. Life also has development projects to provide medical relief, water purification, educational programs, relief for orphans, and much more. Your help and support can greatly improve these efforts. All donations are tax deductible. For more information, please visit our website at lifeusa.org or call 248-424-7493. That's lifeusa.org, 248-424-7493.
Ziyad brand. Quality products from our family to yours. Ziyad Brothers Importing offers the finest quality products, including brands like Sultan, Kraft, Nestle, Hook, Rico Picon, Donna, and many more. Ask your retailer to carry these fine products because you deserve the very best. For more information, visit our website at www.ziyad.com. That's www.ziyad.com. Ziyad, quality products from our family to yours.
A car accident can change your life in an instant. As a result of a car accident, you may become unemployed. As a result of a car accident, you may need a lot of medical treatment. People think that insurance companies are on their side. Why? Because they're giving them one or two benefits. Are they giving them all the benefits they deserve? How would one know unless you consult with an attorney? Call the law offices of Jumana Kiruz at 248-557-3645. 248-557-3645.
This is Dr. Sahar Khamis. Join me on the third Friday of each month at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll be discussing some of the most important current political, economic, and social issues in my program, The Bridge. On Radio Baladi, on America's Voice of the Arabs, WNZK 690 AM and WDMV 700 AM.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. This is your host, Dr. Sahar Khamis, and we are discussing today standing up together with and for each other after Orlando, Interfaith Voices in Ramadan. And with me this morning discussing this topic are Reverend Kasey, Mr. Walter Ruby, and Ms. Nadia Hassan. Reverend Kasey, you have been the county executive, the Interfaith Community Liaison for the county executive in Montgomery County, where you have been actually administering and supervising a lot of interfaith activities and solidarity events in the DMV area, the DC, Maryland, and Virginia area. Please let me know a little bit more about your work as Interfaith Community Liaison for the county executive in Montgomery County. What does this job or position really entail, and the kind of initiatives that you are most proud of in this realm?
Well, thank you, Sahar. First, it's identifying as many of the faith communities as possible, and so far that means in excess of 600, well over 600, and we're having all of those mapped so that soon people can go on the Montgomery County website and find where mosques, temples, churches, gurdwaras are found, and be able, at least within your own neighborhood, find out learn a little bit more about your neighbors. Also be a description of their faith tradition and what services they're providing the greater community. Mm-hmm. I also have them organized now within working groups. For instance, we met yesterday to welcome our new neighbors. That's a big priority of ours. We want to be in a position of welcoming and assimilating the children fleeing violence out of Latin America. We want to be welcoming Syrian refugees. We already have several faith communities that are committed to basically adopting families, and much more could be said on that front. We're also working around hunger. We're going to be having another major forum in the fall. Right now we're organizing, we have a broad base now, about 15 different hunger-related programs committed to rescuing and providing food for the hungry of Montgomery County. We're also organized and relating again to the horrific violence and the prejudice, the dangerous rhetoric of our time with the xenophobic, Islamophobic, anti-Semitic, hate-filled rhetoric and all. We're responding to that with a series of vigils and forums. And we have teams, in fact, here in Montgomery County, interfaith leaders on call 24/7, responding to any act of hate or violence, and working directly with police, fire and rescue, the Office of Emergency Management and Homeland Security, Health and Human Services, Red Cross, and so forth on that front.
Absolutely, and I also know for sure that you also coordinate very well with the Office of Human Rights, the Commission on Human Rights, and also the Committee on Hate Violence, and other organizations are very active in this area in the DMV region.
We met just 2 nights ago, in fact, and are planning our upcoming Friendship Picnic, which we expect will draw at least a couple of thousand people. The whole point there is just bringing together people from different faith traditions, families. It's intergenerational. We're going to have 2 stages now where people can be enjoying the music, the dance, the artistry of the different faith communities with, kosher food for all different traditions.
Absolutely, and the Friendship Picnic will take place on September 25th, 2016 this year, and it's going to be the 3rd, actually, annual Friendship Picnic that the Human Rights Commission of Montgomery County and, the Office of Human Rights, other organizations and groups, including the Interfaith Community and the County Executive Office in Montgomery County, are going to be together co-hosting as a very successful tradition of knowing our neighbors. Nadia, speaking of knowing our neighbors, you are the founder of Young Leaders Institute, and this is really a youth leadership initiative which tries to train young people to become active and to be also academically successful. How does this type of initiative actually help in the realm of strengthening interfaith dialogue and also getting these young people to know their neighbors?
Okay, yeah, so that's a great question. So I founded Young Leaders Institute, which is, as you mentioned, a network connector and a platform for young people to come together to be able to gain essential skills, leadership skills, communication skills, team building skills, conflict resolution skills, problem-solving skills, critical thinking and critical analysis skills. I started this because the impetus behind it really was my involvement in the schools, the school system, and I noticed over time that there was something lacking in schools, and the schools were teaching youth and our students to memorize information, teaching them how to take tests, but they weren't really teaching them how to think critically. And these interpersonal skills that are very much needed in our world today with all that is going on around us, I felt that the youth and the students and our children are lacking in this area. So I started the Young Leaders Institute with that in mind to help our students be able to gain the skills that they would really need to succeed in any field that they decide to go in. So Interfaith, I actually am developing a program right now where I'm bringing Muslims, Jews, and Christians and people of, other young folks of other faiths to come together and to build these leadership skills. But while they're building their leadership skills, we're talking about issues that pertain and are particular to the interfaith movement, to the interfaith work. And the other thing that I'm trying to do is I'm trying to connect our youth who have time and resources and energy right now to work in this field, because our imams and our rabbis and pastors and priests, they're stretched so thin. They don't have the time a lot of times. I mean, they're doing such great work, but a lot of times they're finding that they don't have the time to do everything that they need to do. So what I'm trying to do is bridge a relationship between the youth and the leadership, the interfaith leadership, and so I will train the youth and then connect them with our leadership so that they could help with these interfaith programs and interfaith initiatives. And then that way, you know, it'll relieve the pressure off of the leaders who are trying to do so much, and just we find ourselves, and I'm sure my friends on the call here could attest, we find ourselves just trying to do so much with very little time. So I want there to be a partnership between the young folks in Interfaith working with the leadership, and so that we can do more. And my focus for Interfaith now, you know, because I feel like after 9/11, we've done such great work in terms of interfaith dialogue, and really talking and get to know our neighbors. But we're at a juncture right now where we need to push beyond the dialogue. So the interfaith movement is at a very interesting place right now, because we're kind of exploring, well, what does it mean to move beyond the dialogue? What does it mean to push forward in these initiatives? And what's next for Interfaith? And how I think a key role here is the interfaith movement is trying to figure out what does it mean to build effective coalitions. And there's a lot of conversation that's going on around coalition building and how to do that effectively across faith lines.
Absolutely, and also the youth are the most technologically savvy group who are more capable of using social media, new media, and making their voices heard out there, which really brings me to the point of the importance of having Muslims' voices and Muslims, narratives heard in their own voice. And in this context, I'm particularly interested and intrigued by what you mentioned, Walter, Ruby, about this campaign of Muslims are speaking out, that you said is going to be featured and is going to have a Facebook page and it's going to be a series. If you can just, in the remaining couple of minutes before our commercial break, give us an idea more about this Muslims Are Speaking Out campaign, what it's all about and why it's particularly important.
Well, we see this terrible, horrible tragedy in Orlando, and then the backlash that's is already being directed against the Muslim community, even from the very the presumptive Republican candidate, just shows us the importance of getting out the message that Muslims, that the vast majority of American Muslims, all of American Muslim organizations, all are totally opposed to violence and extremism, and this message needs to get out. And as I said before, those of us on the call know this, and those of us who work in interfaith know this. But unfortunately, the larger American, much of the larger American public is still believing this nonsense that Muslims are quiet in the face of this, or even some supporting it. So this is the point of this social media campaign, and we're using, again, as you say, the social media to get out this message. So we're going to be unveiling a Facebook page on June 27th, and basically we'll be putting up material from the Muslim community showing the many different ways the Muslims are speaking out against extremism, and also how Muslims are positively impacting our society. We're looking for this material, and certainly folks can email me if they're interested at walterruby, one word, @gmail.com. And if you're interested in sending any links to this campaign, please do that. We really feel that this will make an important contribution. And we have the involvement of our chairman, Russell Simmons, who obviously is a celebrity and has the involvement of other celebrities. So Russell will ensure that this campaign will get out to millions of folks just through his own celebrity. And we believe this will have an important impact.
I particularly like the point about also asking people to actually send in their input and send in relevant links to certain content that they believe is relevant in the context of fighting Islamophobia and making sure Muslims' voices are heard, speaking out loudly and clearly against all forms of bigotry, hatred, violence, and extremism. So this is really an important grassroots initiative, and I do hope it is successful and will create the kind of needed and desired impact. We will come back again to this interesting and lively discussion right after this commercial break. Stay tuned, please.
It's never too early to get your child on the right track. From their first words to first grade, Dreamy Children's Center in Troy works closely with parents to provide an experience that goes beyond early education. The highly qualified and experienced staff use a variety of programs that can help nurture important personality traits like responsibility, independence, problem solving, motivation, and respect. They also have educational programs ranging from preschooling for infants, toddlers, transitional toddlers, and pre-K to Montessori-approved programs and bilingual curriculums for young children. They're open from 6 a.m. to 6:30 p.m., can provide breakfast, lunch, and dinner with snacks in between, and can also arrange for after-school pickup. Dreamy Children's Center in Troy is located at 37373 DeQuinder, just above 16 Mile Road, and can be found on Facebook at Dreamy Children's Center. Ask about the free preschool program. Call today, 248-680-9170, 248-680-9170.
Nidal's Pharmacy is a place to go for all of your prescription needs. All insurance plans are accepted at Nidal's Pharmacy. Prescription delivery is available. Nidal's Pharmacy is located at 23,800 Orchard Lake Road, Suite 102 in Farmington Hills. Call 248-477-2131. Nidal's Pharmacy, 248-477-2131. When you're looking for the best in optical care, Dr. Imad Nakash is your doctor to see. With years of experience and thousands of successful procedures performed, you can trust your eyes to Dr. Imad Nakash. See Dr. Imad Nakash and his professional staff for your eye care needs. There's 2 locations to serve you. In Hazel Park, call 248-336-3937. 248-336-3937. In Rochester Hills, call 248-299-3937. That's 248-299-3937. Are you going to start a restaurant or a grocery store soon? Do you need floor plans and designs? Call Nadia Abood at 734-744-9796. Do you want to buy kitchen and restaurant equipment at discount prices? Call Nadia Abood now, 734-744-9796. New Concept Products and Design, the trademark of kitchen equipment. 5% discount on all purchases of $75,000 or more. New Concept Products and Design, new location, 31185 Schoolcraft in Livonia. Learn more at www.newconceptproducts.com. Call Nadia Abood, 734-744-9796.
This is Dr. Sahar Khamis. Join me on the 3rd Friday of each month at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll be discussing some of the most important current political, economic, and social issues in my program, The Bridge. On Radio Baladi, on America's Voice of the Arabs, WNZK 690 AM and WDMV 700 AM.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. This is your host, Dr. Sahar Khamis. We're discussing today standing up with and for each other interfaith voices in Ramadan. Right before going to the commercial break, we were talking about the importance of having Muslims' voices heard and Muslims speaking in their own voice about condemning terrorism, extremism, and also defining who they are. Nadia Hassan, as an American Muslim yourself, and someone who has been involved in interfaith dialogue movements and activism, I'd like to ask you the question about whether there's being too much, too little, or just the right amount done in terms of Muslims condemning and speaking up against acts of violence and extremism. As you well know, there is this sentiment that, Muslims are not doing enough, more needs to be done, more needs to be said to make sure Muslims are really heard in the realm of condemning terrorism and extremism, while on the other hand, some Muslims are saying, why should we always be on the defensive and put ourselves in a position where we have to obviously state the obvious, which is that the 1.6 billion Muslims out there are definitely against extremism and radicalization and violence anyway. So why should we state the obvious and be on the defensive? What is your own take on this particular point? Are we doing too much, too little, or just the right thing?
Thank you. This is a very important question. Muslims are doing an incredible job speaking out, denouncing, condemning, and, giving there has been an outpour of condolences and heartfelt condolences to the LGBT community about the loss of life, about this barbaric attack that we recently witnessed. Muslims across the country and across the world are speaking out. The problem is the media doesn't report on this. The media, because the media has now consolidated and is owned by, I believe, 6 corporations, they get to pick and choose what they want to cover. And because our voices are not making it to the mainstream media, it appears to the world, or what the media wants the world to know or to believe, that Muslims are not speaking out, are not condemning terrorism, are very indifferent about the matter, when quite the opposite is the case. And as a matter of fact, just earlier this week we had a press conference in Montgomery County, which my message to the media was that the media will want you to believe this narrative about this story, that this man was a Muslim man, that he was, angry, he was, he was somehow either an ISIS sympathizer or, connected to some terrorist group, and he was influenced somehow by his faith. But this narrative, this story is actually is the furthest from the truth. This particular case, this was a hate crime, a homophobic hate crime that was perpetrated against the LGBT community. But this man was a disgruntled, he was deranged, he was mentally ill, physically abusive man, and by the own testimonies of his close family members and even his ex-wife, they all said that he was a very aggressive, very angry, abusive man. And in addition to that, he was a gay man. And the media is not telling this story. And so he was a gay man that turned on his own people. And so this is a narrative that isn't being brought forth. And so there's a distorted narrative out there. And so how you frame the narrative can really change the narrative of the story. And this is what's happening to Muslim voices. Muslim voices are speaking out. Muslims are speaking out across the country, but this is not being heard in the mainstream. And that's why programs like this are very important, because we need to have independent media stations. We need to have channels and venues where not only Muslims, but Muslims as well as other voices who are not being heard, minority groups who are not being heard, need to have a place where our voices could be amplified.
I cannot agree with you more, Nadia. This is extremely important to have alternative media where the alternative voices and alternative narratives could be told and could be heard. Channels and platforms like US Arab Radio, Radio Baladi that we are on right now, Open Lens that I'm going to talk to you about in a little while. Other initiatives are definitely much more needed now than ever before. Reverend Kasey Kaseman, the idea of standing up with and for each other when incidents as horrible or terrible as the tragic event in Orlando, Florida took place, what is the importance and significance of having not just one single community, but different communities, Muslim community, Jewish community, Christian community, and the LGBTQ community in this case, being together, standing up together in solidarity? What is the significance and importance of this standing up with and for the other, Reverend Kasey Kaseman?
I think it comes down to the need for knowing we're not alone. All of us have reason in situations like this to be grieving, to be angry, to be questioning. And when we come together, we can you feel the love. And you know that we are essentially sisters and brothers of one human family. And that provides then a sense of that sense of solidarity, that sense that it's not just being alone as an individual, but that together we can feel that transcendent power that we find within our respective faith traditions. That's all the more powerful when we're there, looking each other in the eye, and just simply kind of being together. And then beyond that, we can begin then to talk through kind of where we're coming from. And as a Christian, part of my hurt and anger is hearing the same old kind of rhetoric with regard to the Muslim community needing to speak out, because I'm getting those messages just, it seems like every day. And looking at the last 15 mass shootings, for instance, in the United States, 3 have been committed by people identified with the Muslim faith tradition. If we were identifying other faith traditions, clearly the great majority are Christian. But I don't know of a Christian, faith tradition that feels a need to be apologizing for that. But it is something that we within the Christian faith need to be acknowledging and speaking about in our, worship services and more. Again, so being together in an interfaith context helps us to see the kind of messages we need to be taking back to our own people, namely that in times of fear and anxiety, rather than just coming together and seeing ourselves as over against the other, what we need to be able to do in the name of God, Allah, Yahweh, whatever our term is, to see that we are essentially one. And and then we need to be experiencing that. That's what these vigils and interfaith forums offer us.
Absolutely, this idea of standing up with and for the other and having empathy and compassion with and for each other through, the candle vigils and other, activities is very important for the public to see, like you exactly rightly mentioned. Groups like Shoulder to Shoulder and other groups have really stood up and said clearly, we are all together in the face of bigotry, hatred, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, xenophobia, racism, all forms of evil in this world. I cannot help but ask you, Reverend Kaseman, I'm going to ask also Walter Ruby the same question. Doing interfaith work is great, but doing interfaith work in Ramadan in particular, the holy month of Ramadan, maybe takes a different flavor or a different twist. What has been your own experience in Ramadan, in the holy month of Ramadan, doing interfaith work in this particular holy month? Reverend Kaseman.
Oh, well, one of the things, in fact, earlier this morning, just finished my newsletter going out next Monday. There's a whole list of iftars where I'm inviting people from throughout the greater community to participate in. Because in doing that, people find a blessing, truly a blessing. Because to talk about, feeling the love, for the Muslim community under these circumstances to have the grace to be inviting in people from the greater community and then embracing them and providing food. There's nothing like breaking bread together, is there, in terms of becoming friends and knowing that we're essentially sisters and brothers of one family. So I can't think of anything better for anyone in our country today than being able to meet with their Muslim brothers and sisters around a time of prayer and a sharing of a meal.
Absolutely. And Walter Ruby, I'll ask you the very same question. You have like 1 minute or 2 minutes to answer, then we'll go to a commercial break afterwards. Also, the significance of the holy month of Ramadan in terms of interfaith work and interfaith dialogue, how has that been particularly special to you?
Well, it's just been it adds another huge dimension, and it's another way the holding having interfaith iftars, whether they're in mosques or even sometimes we see a movement of holding iftars in synagogues that have taken place in many cities and churches too, obviously. And it's so huge, for non-Muslims, it's such a chance to encounter Muslims as human beings and to be inspired to after all, to be coming to an event, realizing that these folks, you're sitting down at an iftar with these folks, they haven't eaten anything, they haven't had a sip of water, and it's just, sort of blows the mind of the non-Muslims. And just to see the kind of joy, the kind of solidarity, the kind of good works that Muslims are doing, all of this comes out in these iftars, and I think it has a very, very enormously positive effect. And again, just in terms of humanizing each other. And I'm just remembering just a few weeks, just the beginning of Ramadan, having this event, this iftar in the synagogue in support of the Syrian refugees. And again, the sense of awe that that many Jews had never, actually met a Muslim. Many of the people, there were several hundred members of the synagogue. Many of them had never met a Muslim, and to see Muslims fasting and doing all these things and the good works and together standing up for the Syrian refugees was really, really inspiring.
Absolutely. And we'll come back to this interesting and lively discussion right after this commercial break. Stay tuned, please.
Image Travel بجميع موظفيها تهنئ الجالية الكريمة بحلول شهر رمضان الكريم أعاده الله عليكم بالخير والبركة. زورونا بإيمج ترافل تجدون الخدمة الممتازة وأفضل الأسعار. كل عام وأنتم بخير، وشكرا لإذاعة صوت العرب من أمريكا.
نيابة عني وعن مؤسسة حمادي وفروعها ستار انترناشونال أكاديمي في ديربون هايتس، يونيفرسال أكاديمي في ديترويت، يونيفرسال ليرنينج أكاديمي في ويستلاند، ونور انترناشونال أكاديمي في ستيرلينغ هايتس، نهنئ الجالية والعالم الإسلامي ومستمعي ومشاهدي إذاعة صوت العرب من أمريكا بمناسبة حلول شهر رمضان المبارك، وكل عام وأنتم بألف خير.
أسواق زمزم الواقع على 24065 أورشارد ليك في مدينة فارمington هيلز ترحب بالجالية العربية والكلدانية. تنزيلة كبيرة على عموم المواد الغذائية في يوم الأربعاء من كل أسبوع. لا تنسوا فريش كاري اوت، جميع انواع المعجنات، وايضا صواني الكمبو المشكله والصمون الحار. لحوم حلال الجاليه العربيه والاسلاميه، الملحمه باداره قصاب الجاليه المعروف سلوان جربوع. زوروهم على 24065 اورشارد ليك في مدينه فارمington هيلز، او اتصلوا بهم على 248-476-0300. اسواق زمزم للمذاق عنوان لجميع طلباتكم، اتصلوا على 248-476-0300. اسواق زمزم للمعامله الراقية وكرم الضيافة عنوان.
This is Dr. Sahar Khamis. Join me on the third Friday of each month at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll be discussing some of the most important current political, economic, and social issues in my program, The Bridge. On Radio Baladi, on America's Voice of the Arabs, WNZK 690 AM and WDMV 700 AM.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. This is your host, Dr. Sahar Khamis. We're discussing today standing up with and for the other, Interfaith Voices in Ramadan. Nadia, before going to the commercial break, both Reverend Kasey, Kaseman, and Mr. Walter Ruby talked about their experience as non-Muslims joining, iftars and other interfaith events in Ramadan. From your own experience as an American Muslim, what has been the significance of holding hands together, breaking bread together, joining these types of activities and events, especially in the holy month of Ramadan?
Yes, thank you. Actually, it's such an experience, I think, that we as interfaith leaders take for granted because such a small number of people engage in society engage in these type of activities. So I feel blessed first to say that that I've had the opportunity to be a part and to be able to partner with the various faith communities in these interfaith iftars. I have a close friend in California who is Catholic, and we've developed such a friendship over the years that when the Lent season comes around, I observe Lent with her. And when Ramadan comes around, she observes Ramadan with me. Mm-hmm. So we have such a beautiful relationship that we're even willing to go even just beyond just being observers or, standing in solidarity with one another, but we're even taking it another step where we're really experiencing what it's like to observe with a person of a different faith. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of these stories, just like Walter and Reverend Kasey have mentioned, that there's a lot of breaking bread together in different communities, but it's taking on, it looks differently. So people are doing different things, and they're being very creative with how they celebrate, how they come together. And so I think this is a very creative way, because there are people who have developed friendships and who are blogging about it. They've taken it to the internet, and they're putting their stories out there. So I've seen so many different manifestations of how people are either celebrating Ramadan or they're celebrating other interfaith events. So it's a beautiful thing. And as an American Muslim, I just say that I'm very blessed to be a part of this movement.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Absolutely, and there are even now initiatives to try, like you said, the other person's rituals, like for one day. Like I know groups where, for example, a non-Muslim will be a Muslim for one day and just try the 16 and a half hours of fasting in the holy month of Ramadan without food and without water, and then they come at the end of the day and say, this was my experience trying the fasting in Ramadan today, and it really does have a beautiful impact. And we had a group in University of Maryland called the Jewish Muslim Alliance, where again we join each other's activities and rituals religiously and experience the beauty and the grace of the other person's faith tradition, which I think is very special.
Yeah,
going to the idea of grassroots activism and really youth involvement, which I think is a very, very important point moving forward. We all talked about how it's important to mobilize people at the grassroots level, especially investing in young people, in youth. Nadia, she talked about the Youth Leadership Platform and the Young Leaders Institute. And Walter, you also talked about the importance of grassroots activism in the realm of Jewish-Muslim dialogue. How can we become more effective and active in terms of attracting young people in particular and getting them on board with such interfaith initiatives and events? Walter, Ruby.
Well, that's a very, very important question, Sahar, and we continue to work at it. We continue to try to involve, for example, student groups both on the high school and the university level. I will say that it's one of the challenges we face is that because of the intensity of especially on campuses, of the discussion of the Israel-Palestine issue, it sometimes makes it even these kind of initiatives that we're talking about harder. And again, what we are saying really is that folks can agree to disagree on aspects of that, and that's perfectly fine. And yet to see the common interest in building the Muslim-Jewish relationship and not demonizing each other, I think is extremely, extremely important. So we're looking at different ways to even discuss the Israel-Palestine conflict, although that's not our main focus. We had an event recently, I believe you were part of it. We used psychodrama. We brought a psychodramatist to have that discussion so people could understand on a much deeper, on a personal level, where the other was coming from, and even role modeling the role of the other. But the main thing is, again, to understand and to share with our young people. Oh, one other point I would make is that one other thing we've done very effectively with young people is going out and doing acts of kindness, of loving kindness, such as feeding the hungry, visiting sick and elderly folks from both communities, things like that, to it's a wonderful way to express our common humanity and the common impulse in both, the common imperative, I should say, in both Islam and Judaism to help those who were most in need. So that's an area where we have had effectiveness and will continue to, but reaching out to the young people is an incredibly important part of what we need to do.
Absolutely, especially young people, as we said before, are more technically and technologically savvy. They're more able to use social media. They still have all the time and energy in the world, which older people may not necessarily always have. So it's important to really invest in young people and in their energy. I also like the part about putting faith in action. Like you mentioned, doing all of these activities like, fighting hunger and helping the homeless and the needy. And Reverend Kasey, if you'd like to comment, briefly on this whole idea of putting faith in action, your own work in the interfaith community in Montgomery County, Maryland, and beyond. What is the importance of not just having dialogue, but also putting our faith into effective action in these very many different forms, from your experience?
It was very intentional not beginning with interfaith dialogue, strategically staying away from doctrine and the differences. And it's interesting how we come back to that after we have come together around feeding the hungry, around providing health care for the uninsured or underinsured. When we come together around something, again, like this friendship picnic, which, by the way, does involve young people. And for instance, last year we had a band coming out of one of the mosques, and so I said, okay, now can I be describing this as a Muslim band? Oh, no. These are the young people. So they naturally have friends from other faith traditions, who are a part of it. And so when we're doing things together, you see, even like the interfaith group on call 24/7, being trained to be first responders with the police and all, you come together with that focus, and your own faith tradition drives you there. For the love, that comes from the creator and sustainer of all life, that you need to be doing it. Well, you get into that, and then you make friends, and you naturally want to become better acquainted. And that then leads to interfaith dialogue. It leads to sharing each other's prayer life and worship experience. It leads to having meals in each other's homes. That's the best way that I have found for bringing it all together.
Absolutely. And in 1 minute, Nadia Hassan, I think that also the Youth Leaders Institute or Young Leaders Institute that you are directing now also has this kind of applied hands-on, putting faith in action perspective and focus, correct?
Yes, correct. Yeah, actually, in my leadership training, the name of the project that they have to take on is called Leadership in Action. But in essence, it's the same thing. It's faith in action, and these young leaders are coming together. They are mobilizing. They are collaborating on how to solve some of the world's most troubling issues. They are working on issues of police brutality. They are working on issues of gun violence. They are working on issues related to domestic violence. They're taking up a variety, a wide array of issues, and just to give them that platform for them to exercise their freedom and their will to organize and to work and to do something productive, something that benefits society is amazing. They are coming up with things that I would have never thought of. And this is the thing that's so exciting, to see them be able to come. And my young leaders now are mobilizing around the gun violence issues. And actually, we are planning to go down to Capitol Hill on July 14th with a group of young leaders. We've partnered with another larger Muslim organization who's going to support us in the initiative, and we're going to visit our senators, our congressmen, and they're going to hear from high school students this time, not from the adults, but from high school students on how they feel about the sale of assault weapons and having these guns in the hands of civilians.
Thank you so much. And I'm afraid we're running out of time. That brings us to the end of our show this morning. I can only thank our great guests this morning, Ms. Nadia Hassan, Mr. Walter Ruby, Reverend Kasey Kaseman, for all the great work they're doing out there in the community, and also for being my distinguished guests this morning. Thank you all so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. And thanks to all our listeners on US Arab Radio, Baladi Radio. Thank you so much, everybody, and have a blessed day. Goodbye.